Hi everybody, Sam Lewis again, and this is my next meeting for you. I've got a wonderful lady who is a great friend of mine and will be a great friend of mine for the rest of my life. It's Annie Lawrenson. I met Annie, it was the beginning of the charity, wasn't it? It was over 7
Well,
years now.
it was a bit before the charity in terms of when you actually established as a charity. It was probably a good, 2 years before that?
Yeah, because you were the one who helped us get charity status, weren't you? So
Yeah, I had that lovely honour.
yeah.
And what I kind of got quickly was that once you get once we get introduced to Sam, that you never lose Sam after that. That's the one. Not that I tried. I've not tried.
One Sam.
You haven't tried. Once Sam arrives in your life, Sam doesn't go from your life, and that isn't because I've tried. No, I promise. I'm glad you're still in it.
Now, Annie's been a great friend, and she's also supported the charity doing workshops for us over the years. And she's amazing at inspiring people and helping people find their pathway forward. So I thought I'd get her on today to have a little chat with us. But she is a woman of many hats, and she does do a bit of this, a bit of that. She's like a female Del Boy, really.
This time next year, we'll be a millionaire.
She'll be in the markets going, hey, I want it. So if you just tell us a little bit about what you actually do, Annie, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. Well, you're right. I am a woman with many, many hats. But there's two hats that I particularly like wearing. I work for a charity that's local to Halton and St Helens, and we're called Halton and St Helens Voluntary and Community Action. And essentially that charity exists to support other organisations such as charities, small community groups, branches of larger charities, and our role is to advise, guide, support in all things to do with being able to manage and run your charity effectively. So I've been involved with the organisation now for 20 years. It's been 20 years this April.
I've been with them. Old enough.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just straight out of school. And I've got to be honest, I absolutely love it. And that role's developed over those years from originally just working, recruiting volunteers to put into organisations and helping them to now, since being with them, I've trained in, got my training and development qualifications. I've had coaching qualifications. They've done a lot of personal development that's helped me, but equally so, which has helped groups. And so that's where my role came in terms of meeting yourself, Sam, because obviously you approached our organisation in terms of support and like following it up and kind of making it more formalised as a charity because of the opportunities that brings. So it was a privilege meeting you, to be quite honest. And obviously then getting involved and being arm wrestled into being a trustee and for a period of time. But yeah, I still continue to do that today, and I absolutely love that work. But somewhere along that journey, I did feel I wasn't necessarily living my passion, my dream, my kind of, I didn't feel my skills or gifts that I enjoyed were being utilised enough. And that is around drawing, about illustration, around painting, around those kinds of areas. And as a result, at some point along the line, through many kind of stops and starts and people pushing me and myself holding me back, eventually I did kind of make the decision to set up my own business. So I also have my own company, which is called Communicart Limited. And essentially what we do there is we create, I say we, it's me, create doodles with meaning and purpose. So it is very much about using the visual language, our drawing skills, whatever we think of those. It's about using visual language, visual kind of imagery to share kind of stories, to kind of make sense of what can be complex. So when companies essentially kind of, trying to communicate messages, very often what they miss is putting that down into something visual so people can get it quicker. So yes, very much kind of into kind of encouraging people to pick up pens, pencils, whatever instruments they use to do some doodling as well. So it's fab.
Do you know what? There's plenty of diamonds in our group who love drawing.
I get the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry, there's a bit of a delay on the
People
camera
say
there.
that. People say, oh, sorry. The people say, you know, oh, I'm not really good at drawing, or I've not done it for years. And what I would say is just pick up that pen, pencil, markers, felts, whatever it is, paints, paintbrushes, and just start with doing whatever comes to mind. Don't think about it having to be perfect, having to kind of look like what it needs to look like, because essentially it's about building your confidence.
Yeah.
Um,
Our art club is really strong at the moment,
and
Annie.
just take it from there. I believe so. I believe so. It just shows. I'm a big believer that people are, you know, part of our DNA is that we're creative, and I'm not just talking about drawing or whatever. That just happens to be my passion. I'm talking creativity is about being able to problem solve and think about something that doesn't exist, and how can we create that. So that can be anything from cooking to writing to music to dancing to whatever it is. Essentially, creativity is about creating something from nothing, or from bits and bobs, and putting them together to kind of try and encourage people to be creative a lot more.
Yeah, I used to do that with dance class. I used to express myself through the dances and get the kids to as well. Like, what emotion is it? You know, let's talk emotions. And you always used to find that the kids, for some reason, would choose anger, which said a lot about what they were going through at the time, and their dance would always be around anger. I think it's a really good way of getting your feelings out, whether it's through drawing, whether it's through drama, dance, music, whatever. I think it's really important to get them out. And I think when we have our art club, all the girls just go into doing their painting, and it's like a mindfulness activity, because they've forgotten everything, because they're just concentrating on one thing, that painting, and they love it.
Absolutely. Good. I'm glad. And you know, the more opportunities there are for people to kind of do those kinds of things, the better for me. You know, whatever it is, I just happen to have that passion for painting or drawing. And you know, I did get hung up at first. I can remember, because I went to art college after I left school. I wasn't very academic at school. You know, I left with 1 GCSE essentially, and that was classed as technical drawing. I'm not sure what you would class it as now, but I didn't even get a C or above in art. So I kind of remember going through school feeling quite average, nothing special. But I just knew I loved doing all the art, and kind of, you know, just painting and what have you. So when I came out of school and kind of gone, oh, you know, and the careers at the time, the career options, I don't know what it's like now in schools. My daughter's only 12, so she hasn't gone through that process yet. But you had a careers officer at school, and you sat in a room and they kind of just ask you a few questions, and then they tell you what they think, you know, you're best suited to. And I can remember coming out of that meeting being told, you know, you'd be better in the armed forces, you know, some kind of service personnel. And I kind of just went, where's that come
they're
from?
not the most exact things to do. Andrew said that he's had a kid
I was like,
who couldn't
I
put a
just was
sentence
baffled.
together, and he was supposed to be some kind of communications officer. It just doesn't always work out correctly.
No, and it never sat right. And in the end, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to apply to art college. If I get in, I know it's meant to be. If it's not, then we'll find another door. We'll just see what happens. And I can remember applying it, and I was absolutely over the moon when I got in. Because I obviously hadn't had the English and maths kind of grades at the time, I had to do extra year. But that was amazing for me to get an extra year in art college. You couldn't have. It was like a gift. So it was great, and I loved it. And again, even through art college, I found, you know, your lecturers at the time, they had their favourites. There was ones that they kind of praised a lot more than others. So I kind of went through art college, again, very similar to school, feeling quite average, nothing amazing, but neither kind of lacking as well. So it was almost like, oh, come on, you're not bad at it, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I kind of carried on. And when I left art college, I couldn't find a job in that industry at all. I went and specialised in graphics, and I couldn't find that kind of job. And I fell into a job that just paid me to kind of, so I could get a car and, you know, I get a house and things like that. But it was, and then through circumstances, situations, I ended up moving into the charity sector from the private sector. And I absolutely loved it. And although I kind of got joy from it, because essentially people's motivations for running charities, like, you know, you do it because you
want to make a difference.
Don't do it for the money, because
there's none in it.
Salaries in the charity sector are very, very poor compared to what's in the commercial sector. So you don't go into it to make any money. You go into it because you want to make a difference. And that, I loved that energy. And that's why I've stayed so long. And I don't really have any intentions of leaving, even though, you know, I've kind of got my own stuff. And then at some point along the way, I had to start believing in myself a little bit more, even though I'd grew up with of a mentality or of a thought that actually you're nothing special. There's nothing amazing about the work that you do. It's okay. And I grew up with that limiting belief that was self-imposed. That's how I view the world. And somewhere along the line, I knew I had to change that. But it took a lot of confidence, took a lot of courage, a lot of confidence.
What was it, do you think, that actually made you first feel empowered and first go, right, okay, I'm going to grow from this point? What was it? Was it a person, or was it an event or anything like that that made you go, do you know what, I'm not going to be that Annie anymore, I'm doing this?
I think it was a series of things. It's no one thing. It was probably a combination of things together. And I think one of them was knowing that actually I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel satisfied. Even though I was doing this amazing job in the charity sector, I always felt, well, there's things I know that I've got, skills and gifts that I've got that I'm not utilising. And actually, I think at some point I realised, like my art, like, you know, the coaching, that communication, that one-to-one, that supporting people to progress, that wasn't being utilised as much as what I knew it could or can be. And I always kind of tried to incorporate as much art or kind of visual kind of stuff within the work that I did, but didn't really. And then there were people in my life at the time people that I knew through the VCA work, through the charity sector work, because we'd used them as consultants, but actually have become good friends, because even Jackie Lefebvre, I don't know whether anybody might have heard of Jackie. Jackie runs her own company called Magma Effect, and Jackie works with values, people's priority values, and values are essentially things that we prioritize in our life, whether we're aware of them or we're not. And so she was starting to talk about stuff like that, and I kind of thought, yeah, there's stuff that I know I'm not happy with because I know I'm not living my values. And I went through a journey of exploring what they were, what's important to me in life, and actually how can I bring more of those alive in my life, in the work that I do. And things that I realized quite quickly through that work was creativity was a massive part of my life. Also, there was one of the values that showed up over and over again, which was healing, wholeness, and well-being. So that was around trying to care for your mind, body, and soul. And I recognized I probably was doing one or two of those at any one time, but I wasn't looking at all three. And so as a result of knowing that they're the things that were driving me and they were kind of important to me, I did a bit of work about, well, how can I bring those more alive in my life so actually I'm feeling more fulfilled? And so there was a couple of instances, but I think the breaking point, the bit that really kind of made me go, I have no excuses now, I have to do this, was I was stuck on a train. We were doing a piece of work up in Edinburgh. We were going to do this kind of conference, and I was stuck on a train with 3 other women. So I was at the window seat. So I'm stuck at a window seat. I've got Jackie Lefebvre, who I just spoke about. She was next to me, and I had 2 other people similar to Jackie opposite me. And we, again, a conversation like this, and it was like, well, you know, why are you not doing more of your artwork? And I kind of came up with all these excuses, like, you know, oh, well, I haven't got the time because of the work that I do in the charity. It's like, well, okay, well, can you not think about moving, you know, part-time so you can do more of that? Oh, I can't because financially I need it. And then it's like, well, the equipment and the gear is so expensive. And it's like, well, why don't you get people to buy you for Christmas, your birthdays? And so no matter what excuse I threw out, the reasons why I couldn't do it, they had a response back. And I kind of just went, and I couldn't move. I couldn't even get out to go to the toilet. So I had to sit and listen to it, which actually was probably one of the best things, because by the end of it, I said to them, I've got no excuse now, haven't they? All of them just went, no. So I look forward to seeing what you do. And it was after that, I kind of got a bit of support, mentoring, and kind of set it up. So it was a series of things, really.
I think as a society we do that, don't we? We give excuses all the time, but the only person who actually can change it is yourself. You know, it's very easy to point the finger, but as you point the finger, it is because of them, that, and that, and that. You've got 3 fingers pointing right back at you, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? So it's down to you to actually get it sorted, isn't it? Definitely.
Absolutely. And I think as you know, as the years go on, I mean, I've now done that for, I think it's 8 years now. Prior to it setting up as a limited company, I did it as a self-employed sole trader for 5 years before then. So I think the structure change just made it a bit easier for me to manage. But I think for me, I'm so glad I took that jump, even though there's been ups and downs through that journey of being able to kind of set up your own business and do what it is that you love doing. There has been the ups and downs through that. I've been able to what's in my control, trying
Sorry, Annie,
to
just say that again because the screen froze then.
did it. I'm
Because
sorry.
of,
I'm saying, even though there's ups and downs in the journey, I think what I always went back to was, what is it when I was feeling overwhelmed with stuff? Is go back to that very clear exercise of the circle of influence. So what is it that I'm in control of?
yeah.
So trying to, and then articulating the things that I'm not in control of, so I can actually put them to one side and not stress and not worry about them and the bits that I have got control over. And that for me was a big driver in terms of trying to bring myself back to a place of being able to cope and manage when things did get a little bit overwhelming, really.
We
So
do that, don't we? Because my son, he's only 8, but he's the perfect example of that. If
yeah,
something goes wrong, he starts mentioning everything else that goes wrong, and he
yeah,
starts becoming a negative magnet.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
always have to point out the positive, but that doesn't matter right now. That was 3 weeks ago. You know, if he has
yeah,
this little meltdown, which he's having at the moment about COVID, because he can't see his
yeah,
friends, he can't do this, he
yeah,
can't do that, and this COVID's stupid, and this Boris is stupid, and this, and it just goes on.
yeah,
And then it's just like, do you want a hug? No, because they're stupid as well. It's like,
yeah.
but I said, you're
We
quite
look at
right for
things like that.
feeling that way. It's completely
Yeah,
normal for feeling that way, and everybody's feeling that way. And I actually said to him
absolutely.
this morning, but we can't control that. I said, let's think about what you can control. What can we do? And yeah, we sat down and had a conversation, and he felt much better for it. But I think
Absolutely.
we do that, don't we? Especially on the cancer journey as well. When we're feeling at our lowest, we start noticing all the things that are unfair, and this is unfair, and why is that happening, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually just sit back and go, I'm in a house, I've got running water, I've got 3 healthy children, I've got a husband who loves me, I'm still here right now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Well,
people don't see it, do they?
I'll never forget when I got to come on the weekend away with you while we was delivering some workshop, myself and Janet, Janet Roberts. And I'll never forget, I think all you ladies were on your way out for a walk at the time. So we were going into the house as you was coming out. And so it gave us time to kind of set up and do what we needed to do. And I said to you, I was blown away because on the wall
Oh, yeah.
was I think was 2 flip charts full of the positives or the benefits to having cancer. And I, as someone who hasn't experienced that journey personally, I was absolutely blown away. I kind
Yeah.
of thought, what do you need me here for at that point? Because I don't know. For me, that took real strength and courage to be able to put those things and it wasn't just 1 or 2. The flip charts were full of
Yeah.
stuff in terms of benefits. And if that's not an example of looking at, well, of the positives and what you're in control of and what you've kind of discovered as a result of that journey, I don't know what is. And it was great because we were able to use that as part of the learning that weekend in terms of planning and what does the future look like and what's important to you and vision boards and all of that, kind of creating that mindset of positivity to kind of
Help you
help
move
you, because
forward. Yeah.
parts of life is dark,
And
parts of
I
life is
think
not nice.
I've got to be honest, I think that's what sets Sam's Diamonds apart, because yes, we know the journey is horrible. We know it's hard. We know that people can die. We know that we might not survive. But we don't need to be facing that every single day, because otherwise those days that you're worrying about all that, you lose that day. It's gone. You're not getting it back.
Absolutely.
So if you've got 3
Absolutely.
months to live and you can't actually see that you've got 3 months to live in the future, every single day for that 3 months, you make the best of it, you enjoy it, you have fun, you move forward, you plan for the future. All that positive mindset is the thing that will carry you through it. It's not like we're being ignorant and being, oh yeah, we live in fluffy worlds and there's no badness happening on this cancer journey. It's just we know it, we don't want to have it in our face all the time. It's like when you meet people and they go, how are you? And they mean real well, because they genuinely want to ask you how you are. But when everybody you meet says, how are you? And you've got to go through the cancer journey and explain everything again, it pulls you down. So one of the things I was mad about, I was like, just be normal, speak to me. And I had that with Andrew, didn't I, my husband? But it was kind of like tell me the goss from work. You said what, she said, and all this stuff. It just entertainment for me that took me away from the negative of cancer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was really, really nice too. So if we look at the thing that turned you round and made you empowered, like that train journey, what would you say empowers you now and drives you forward day to day? What do you get up and go, right, today's going to be a good day? Why is that? What do you do?
To me, it's always about that. I kind of bring into three elements is what am I gonna, what's in it for me today? I always start with me, but what's in it with me today? And even, you know, people kind of go, oh, I mean, my husband is very much, he'll say to himself, he's a glass half empty kind of person, and I'm a glass half full kind of person. So when I start with things around, you know, oh, you know, it's this and it's that.
I think that's just men, you know. I think that's
just
men. Grumpy old men thing, it's got to be.
What's nice, he does say now, he says, oh, I think your kind of point of view is rubbing off on me. And I thought, well, that's quite nice.
Yeah, I like that as well.
But it's even just saying thank you in the morning, you know, as your eyes open and each foot hits the ground. I am grateful. And it's about, right, what's today about? And it might not be a nice day, there might be things happening or whatever, but it might even be, well, just make sure you get a proper lunch break, or just make sure you get time to, you know, spend with Nevaeh a little bit more, Nevaeh being my daughter, and so on. So it's about making sure there's those small things that you can look forward to for each day. And that's one thing for me. Another thing for me is, well, how do I need to carry myself today? So it's giving yourself permission to feel what you need to feel. So if it isn't a good day, I give myself permission to, it's fine. But I just let people know around me, listen, you might get this from me today because of this is how I'm feeling. And that's okay, because it then kind of gives them, either they want to kind of contribute or they want to kind of arm's length. And I'm okay with that. And the other thing is gratitude. I love practicing gratitude, because you can always find something in all of the darkness to be thankful for. And I kind of try and do it in when things are overwhelming. I try and do it. I actually do it every day, and I do it on a night before I go to sleep. So it kind of helps me kind of have that peace. But other than that, I'll try and do it at some point throughout the day. And I even got to one point, honestly, if people could hear me that was outside of my family, I am sure they think I should be on some form of medication, because I even got to a point of like, do you know, if there's nothing, I'm thankful for my bed, because I lay in my bed and I thought, do you know what,
You've got
bed
one?
I've got one, it's comfy, I can, you know, it's really kind of warm, all of that. And I kind of said, but I even went really far, and I kind of thought, I'm even thankful for the people who made the bed. I hope they have a good night's sleep today. And I took it even further. And you know, when you sat there going, if somebody heard what I'm saying, I'm sure they'd think I need some medication or whatever. But it left me, even though it sounded stupid, it left me feeling a bit more positive and a bit more lighter. So then it kind of sets you up either for that day or that night or whatever. So gratitude is a massive thing that kind of keeps me going every day, as well as having a goal, thankful in the morning, having a goal, and then being thankful at night.
I like that. One of the things people do as well is they have a gratitude diary, don't they? So when they wake up, they write 3 things that they're grateful that's going to happen that day. Or 3 things that they're grateful for, like waking up is definitely one of them. But, you know, they write 3 things, or a good night's sleep, it could be anything. And then when they go to bed, 3 things they were grateful for that night, and they keep it in a log. And then when they're feeling really low, it's just flick through it, and it pulls you up, because of God, look how lucky I am.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think that's a really good idea, that one.
Yeah. And I'm forever make things visual, and that's where my kind of passion comes in. Make things visual, so it's not even work. I mean, my gratitude, I've got books all over the place with all kinds of doodles and what have you in. And the ones where I kind of gratitude is, I'll draw a tree, and it doesn't have to look like a tree to you, but I'll draw a tree and all of these roots, because for me it's the like your root for, because actually that'll draw in all the nourishment so the tree can grow strong and what have you. So I've drew this tree and I've wrote on all of these roots, you know, my dog and my house and my job and my car and, you know, the material things. But then I've talked about, you know, in those are kind of, you know, people that really kind of make a difference for me in my life, all those things that you're grateful for. And now I've not picked that up now, that particular image, that particular sheet of paper, I'd probably not pick that up for maybe 3 months. But I know I can go back to that, and it's easy to interact with it when it's a picture, when it's an image, when it's visual. It's just your brain loves images far more than it loves words.
It's the only way I understand things, you know. I mean, you see me when I wrote the plan out for Sam's Diamonds, I couldn't write it. It was a big, massive diagram.
It was
thing.
A map, I know.
You know the way my brain works. It's like, right, it has to compartmentalise.
Yeah.
But if I talk about it, I'll forget what I've said because of chemo brain and all menopause and stuff.
Yeah.
Or if I write it down, I'll blab, believe it or not, because I don't blab much at all. But if I've got it in a picture, I can see it clearly.
Also, quite reserved.
Shut up, you.
Yeah.
So have you got
but
like
your brain loves it.
Have you got like a life quote that gets you by every day? What's your life quote? What's your favourite?
Well, I've got many because there's loads
you're
of stuff.
Quote queen. Queen you are.
I love quotes, and I'll always include them in any of the training that I do. But there's one in particular that I always kind of go to, and it's one by Maya Angelou, who's now she's not with us anymore. She was a author and poet and actress and all kinds of. She was also an activist in America. And the quote that I kind of stands out for me from her was, "Do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better." And that's kind of kept me, I know, and that's kind of kept me kind of going, well, I'm doing the best I can. Today, I'm doing the best I can. And if I get a little bit of information or if I get a little bit of an experience or whatever, well, do I know any better? Yes, I know better now. Well, do better. So it's always that you're doing the best you can, and that's fine. When you know better, do better. And the other one that she kind of said is when you learn something, then teach it.
Yeah.
Because it's about sharing that knowledge and empowering others with the knowledge that you've gained. So
that's very true, very true.
But so Brené Brown, is another one that I love kind of doing.
I watched her on Netflix the other day, actually. She's very good, isn't she?
She's very, very good, very encouraging.
YouTube. Yeah. With YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, go and watch. She does quite a few TED Talks on vulnerability, courage, bravery, all of those things. And that's based on research that she's done over a number of years. So, yeah, go and have a listen to her.
She's very
and
inspiring.
this woman's made a difference to me lately. I know you can't see it on there. She's a local lady, and it might be worth getting her in. She's Alison Blackler, and she's on the Wirral, and she's just written a book and published one called A Path Travelled. How to make sense of your life. And that's based on a number of years as a coach, NLP practitioner, a counsellor. And just as a little plug for me, I illustrated it.
I was about to ask you that because I remember a few months back you said you were working on a book with someone. Yeah, I was about to ask that.
That's the book. Beautiful. So, all the imagery and everything in there, I can honestly say.
It looks like a nice, easy read as well. It's got gaps.
Do you know what, though? It's a practical kind of book. It's one of those books. I don't know whether you have any kind of that's another one I like, The Power by Rhonda Byrne. Essentially, it's one of those books you keep going back to. You won't necessarily read front to back all the time, but there's exercises in there helps you change your mindset, helps you think about things differently. She's fantastic, and there's quotes all through this, as well as couple of exercises and work things, including doing vision boards. But what's great about it, Alison does helps you understand what's happening neurologically and how your brain is functioning and why we think the way we think, why we do the things the way we do, and the reasons behind those. So she helps us make sense of it, really. She takes us through that journey to make sense of it. But again, for me, it's another one of those moments where this is the second book I've illustrated now since having that nudge on that train. So big deal. When your work is out there for everybody to see, you're very, very vulnerable. And you know me, I hate conflict. I hate, I want everybody to be okay.
Everybody in a happy world.
Yeah. And I know that's not possible, but when it's to do with you and your work, you are making yourself quite vulnerable. So that was a big thing I had to get over.
Yeah.
Was actually be okay with some people not liking what you do.
Yeah. Everyone's not going to love you 100%.
No.
There's always going to be. You could be the nicest person, the most talented person in the world. There will always be someone who doesn't like it or doesn't like you.
Absolutely. And I had to
It does
come to
take time
terms
to
with
learn
that.
that.
Yeah, but when you do, just go for it, honestly.
Yeah.
Just
So
do what you need.
apart from the book, if there was
Yes.
anyone who wasn't feeling empowered around you now and was just like, oh, this is loads of rubbish, I'm happy being in my little spot wallowing and blah blah blah, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, how is that serving them? How is that serving you? Is it serving you well, or is it just making you, feel just more of that same? And actually, was that the dream that they had for themselves? Because essentially we all have dreams, we all have ambitions, and yes, some of them kind of seem unachievable, and probably some of them seem, absolutely absurd or crazy or whatever, or not even anywhere near, being realistic. But actually, when we have a dream or a vision or a passion, even if we're just moving forward a little tiny bit, we're moving forward. And for me, it's about moving forward. Is what you're feeling now, or kind of wanting this, because that's a safe space for them. Very often what I realize is this is a safe space for people, and moving in any direction is uncomfortable, because we don't know what that feeling is, we don't know what to expect. But actually our comfort zones won't grow if we don't move out of them. So it's about just moving a little bit. You might not take a giant leap, you might not even take a footstep, but if you can just move a little bit forward, that kind of moves you to feeling better, emotionally or physically, then it's about taking those smallest of steps, as long as it's in a direction that's a positive way.
I agree. I think it's very much a case of, I mean, on the cancer journey, we do have our down days, and they are completely acceptable. And, I always say, put a sad film on, cry your eyes out, let it all out, and then put your big girl knickers on, give it a time limit. So cancer, you can break me and let me cry for an hour, but after that, you have no more of my time. I'm getting back on. And even like you say, if it's a tiny, tiny step, cancer's had its time. Go away. I'm back. Do you know what I mean?
Because I think there is some power in acknowledging that feeling. You can't ignore it. We can't say that doesn't exist. We have to acknowledge it. That's why we have the emotions. It helps us regulate and helps us to make sense of what's going on. We feel like that because we don't like something, or something doesn't agree with us, or something like that. So I'm sorry about that. I should have took that off before.
I can't see anything. I think one of the things.
Can you hear that?
No. I think one of the things that
I had a phone ringing in my ear then, because we've got phones attached to there. So my apologies for that. But for me,
sorry, I was going to say, I think the thing that we do a lot of the time is we put a big smile on our face to protect others. And it's like, yeah, I'm fine. And inside you're not.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to have that outlet, because you do tend to try and be strong for everybody else as well as yourself, whether they want you to or not. You do try to do that because you want to protect them from worrying about you. But you have to have that outlet, or you're not going to cope. I mean, everyone's like, how are you always so positive, Sam? How are you always like, da-da-da-da-da? I'm not.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's that face that you put on, isn't it? Because I'm so busy trying to support so many people, I'm not going to let them see me down. I have done a couple of times, and it didn't go too well, to be fair.
It's honestly, it's
you have to have your own space to do that, don't you?
Yeah, it doesn't help, and it is about having that space, and then afterwards kind of going, right, come on, that's it, and then you need to kind of have that, because again, it's like I was saying, you can't deny it. Those are the feelings that it brings, but it's about creating something new from this, because our world view would have changed. This happened with all the COVID stuff. Before 8 weeks ago, or 3 months ago, life was completely different. So life has changed massively. So as a result, our priorities and values change.
Yeah.
And actions and attitudes and behaviours change. And so for me, it's about being aware, being more self-aware, and actually going, yes, I accept this is how I feel now, but actually it's not going to be how I'm going to feel forever.
Yeah.
But we have to make a conscious choice.
I think what's really interesting as well, and I've said this to a few of the girls, when you're on the cancer journey and you come to the end of treatment and they say, off you go, back to work, your perspective has changed. You are a different person because you had that time off the treadmill to analyze your life and look at what's going on, and things become more important than others, and so on and so on. I think now that everyone's being restricted in their house, out of work, they may get what we call the awakening. So it's going to be interesting to see who exactly wants to go back to that work, who wants to spend more time with the kids, who's decided to have more kids, who's decided to get a divorce. Do you know what I mean? I think there's going to be a lot of change go on. It's going to be interesting to see. Massively. See, because I think it's just all changed for everyone now. We used to call it the gift of cancer, but I think it's the awakening of cancer, because cancer's not a gift. So I've changed my wording now with that one. But I think a lot of people will have that at this moment in time. You know, they'll start to appreciate seeing their mum and dad. A family will be appreciated much more. All of that massively is going to be a massive awakening for people. So it's going to be interesting to see. If I was like what is it, as a sociologist? Would it be a sociologist? It would be so interesting to see the effect of all this afterwards. Don't you think?
To see, all the dynamics, how they change, who goes back to what, you know, in terms of, you know, is it back to normal for them, or have they created a different normal? And massively. I know I've done that. I've kind of sat there and I thought, you know, do I really want to keep going back in that office? Quite like being able to just, you know, work from here and go down and stuff from there. So, thank you.
Oh, if you've got a brew, I'm not happy.
No, I've got lunch.
Oh my God, looked after.
You see, why would I want to go back in an office? Or I have to go and get my own lunch. Why would I want to do that?
That's so cool.
No, but it does. Things like this change your perspective on the world. What we thought was the normal before, suddenly that's shifted. And our priorities shift, so we have to change our actions, attitudes, and behaviours. And it's like I said to you before. I mean, you know, my medical experience in terms of when I was diagnosed with a tumour, I quickly went through that downward kind of spiral after looking on Dr. Google and kind of being told all kinds of really distressing stories. And suddenly kind of, you know, had to go, can't do any of that anymore. That's not happening. I'm going to leave that there. And I gave my tumour a name because I recognised it was separate from me. It didn't define me in that way. Yes, it impacted my life, but it didn't define who I was. And so I gave it its own name because I saw it as something separate. And that helped me cope in some ways in kind of refocusing and shifting what was and is still part of my life, actually, and how it impacts. But I have a different angle on it now because it has got its own identity, and it's almost like I'm line managing it. Like you do at work. Right, let's have a look at what's going on here. Let's just check in. Working. It's a bit like that. It's like, well, actually, no, you're just not meeting my expectations here. We're going to have to do some kind of performance management. Performance management review is going to happen here. Now suddenly, you know, I am at that place where I can't actually detach myself from mine and can't fire mine, but I can manage it. And so, but it is kind of, it's finding what works for you. And I'm a big believer in what might work for me might not be the same for you. So it's just finding the tools that work for you, that make your life easier to manage. And, you know, you wake up every day feeling like you've got that sense of purpose for something, because essentially, you know, we're all living, you know, those promises every single day. I've got today. So what am I doing today?
Exactly. And I think doing these interviews, and I've got my food. I'll let you go now, I promise. But I think a lot of people that I've interviewed on this line of empowerment, every single one of them has said that they feel empowered because they're doing things for other people and making a difference. And I think once you start doing that without realizing it, it does make you feel more empowered. I think people are looking in the wrong direction for empowerment. and they're looking about self. I want this, I want that, I want to buy that, I want to reach here, I want to do that. But if they stopped and actually pushed other people up to achieve, or help people who couldn't do things, that empowerment, it gives you your sense of self and achievement, that you don't need the material stuff, if that makes sense. Oh, hang on, Annie, I've lost your sound, hon. Can't hear you at all. Oh, there you go, someone's just clicked.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you must have knocked
it. On a physical, even on a physiological level, human beings are created, we instinctively need that connection. We have to have that connection or belonging. That's why isolation and loneliness is such a negative, has a negative impact on people. So as a species, we are meant to be connecting. We are meant to be kind of having those relationships where it is about encouraging, and because when you're helping to build someone else up, like you say, it impacts on you, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your kind of sense of purpose. Well, even if, I know it sounds really silly, but even going feeding the ducks makes me feel good.
Yeah, because those ducks wouldn't have got that food.
If they've had enough, well, there's a bit extra, or if they've not had any, well, there's some. So for me, it's always kind of going, well, and don't get me wrong, my husband says, oh, were you ever going to turn that positivity switch off?
It works for us.
Well, there are times it switches off. There's times I rip it off and throw it away because I've had enough. But I would say 95% of the time it's switched on and it's somewhere over here and I turn the dial, but because that's what works for me. That's what works for me. And I kind of think, find those things that work for you and that empower you. And very often it will be about doing stuff for other people. Now, that's not doing stuff to the point where you burn out, but it is about, baking some cakes or some scones while you give them to a neighbour. It's about, asking your neighbour, do you need any shopping while I'm going? It is about that sense of, well, I'm doing something for someone else.
But it could even be smaller than that. And it's just literally smiling at someone or paying someone a compliment can make someone's day.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know what they're going through at all.
I love it when someone smiles at me.
I know. I always think, have you got wings?
My husband thinks, what do they want? What's
what do they want from us? Same with my husband. It's that like pessimist side, isn't it? Who's he smiling at? Do you know him? I'm really joking.
I know, yeah. How do you know them? No, nothing like that. But it is just simply as something as such as a smile can make a massive difference, and it is about, make sure you look after yourself as well. You have to do all of that. But also, what is it that you can do that helps other people along the way? Because we're all in it. We're all here. Do you know what I mean? We're all here. So if we can make life better, not only for ourselves, but for others, then why wouldn't we want to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
So, love it. And I love your group. I've always said that. And it's nice that you're in the same building as us now, because I get to see more of your diamonds coming in.
Yeah.
And I do see that. That positivity, that warmth, that energy. When you did your Christmas fair, it was fantastic. The energy in that building was amazing. So
yeah.
I kind of think to myself, and I'm always talking about, about Sam's Diamonds. Have you heard about them? You need to go and speak to them. So I do, because I kind of find it, it resonates with me, that empowerment, that fun, that kind of positivity, that, supporting people the way you do really resonates with me. So
I think some of the big organisations are missing a trick there. They literally put cancer in a negative bracket because they want to sell the sob story in order to get funding. And if you speak to any cancer patients, well, any diamonds anyway, none of us are negative. We want to stay positive. We've got that drive to achieve and to win. So it's like we're in a positive place. We're trying to stay positive. We don't need pulling down. None of them can watch adverts like that.
Yeah.
Any cancer adverts that are negative or the victim and she's going through this. Can't watch it. I don't want to know.
Yeah, exactly. And it is about surrounding yourself with those positive messages, because it does do psychologically and neurologically, so your actual brain structure, it does benefit it, having that kind of element of that positivity and that kind of lifting up, because it gives you the right chemicals, the right hormones are released as a result of that. you know, you stress, that cortisol life, you know, with your high levels of stress, it damages your brain structure, the architecture of your brain, living with too much cortisol. So, you know, it's good for us because it keeps us safe. It's that fight or flight hormone. But actually, any prolonged high levels of cortisol actually is detrimental to our physical health now, let alone our emotional, mental health. So, you know, surround yourself with those things that are positive, because the negative things are going to be there, but as much as what's in your control, keep them positive.
Well, they say you become the people you surround yourself with, don't you?
Absolutely. So there's key people I keep with me, hence, you know, still in touch with Jackie Lefebvre, still, you know, Alison, as a result of this book and other work, is a really good friend. And, you know, there's others like them that, you know, including yourself in there very much.
I'm glad you said that. I was waiting for my name though.
But you know what? You are.
Be there.
Yeah. You are. Save the best to the last.
Of course.
But even like for me, it is, you know, you see me in the office sometimes when things are, you're the one that generally kind of comes and goes, right, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes of that, I kind of go, oh, okay, then it makes sense now. And kind of, so it is important.
And then you go, anyway, you better get on with your work, Sam. They go, okay, shut up, Sam. She's been here long enough. She needs to get something done. Stop talking.
Have I ever give you that impression?
Always. I think it's when you put your back to me and you start typing. It's like, okay,
get up and go make me lunch, or me, go make a cup of tea or whatever. It won't be a minute, Sam. Yeah. Love it.
Oh, you're like, oh well, thank you for coming on and doing this interview with us. It's been
absolute pleasure.
Fun, and hopefully it'll help some of our ladies out or any other cancer patients who want to read. There's a few tips in there that we've touched on, and staying positive and moving forward. So thank you very much.
Great.
I appreciate your
time. If
time.
anybody, you know, needs to get in touch, or anybody wants another conversation, just give us a shout. Happy to just jump on every time. And when I get more of these books, because this is literally the first book, when it was published, I ordered this, so this was the first printed copy that came out. As soon as I get more copies, I'll send you some, Sam, so we can put them in a raffle, or you might just want to loan it out or whatever like that.
Is she publishing it on Amazon, or is it a private publisher?
No, it's on Amazon, so you can get it now on Amazon. You put in something around self-help and well-being, a path travelled, how to make sense of your life. Okay. I've written it. I've read it front to back several times, because obviously I've had to typeset it and include the images, but I'm actually going to spend a bit of time going through it again, and kind of, because obviously I've had a work head on when I've been doing it, I'm going to go through it and look at it from a personal perspective, because I know there's lots of stuff in there that we can use. So
super,
lots of good exercises. So go and have a go.
Will do. Thank you very much, Annie. Give everybody a wave. Goodbye.
Thank you. Stay well, everybody.